Saul and Battery, hosted by
Jeans
and Kelly. Forget what you know. Forget what you know. A Saul and Battery.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to A Saul and Battery. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram, and
I'm Jeans, and I am Young Jeans on Twitter and Instagram, YEUNGJEANS.
you don't know how to spell young. It's totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Yeah, thanks. Like that's so novel.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, fine. So that's how we're going to start things off, huh? You're going to... All right. And for those of you familiar with Squat Cobbler, you know that many times when Mike and I are recording, one of my cats comes downstairs and begins to chatter. And she's back. She's circling. She's around. So if you hear a few mews like that, if you hear a few things, she's back. So sorry about that. Yeah, there she is. So awesome. All right. We are here to talk about Season 3, Episode 3, Sunk Costs. The deal was that I was going to do the recap for the first show, and then G was going to do the recap for this show, which in my mind I confirmed as we prepared for this show. But then I found out at the end of preparation that no, I'm doing it again this week. That's right.
Probably next week. I don't know. I spent 9.5 hours watching Better Call Saul today with the season 5 marathon. So
Yeah.
I'm a little fried.
Yep. And so you're now like all the way up to date in your strange convoluted path through this universe of Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Reverse Order, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we owe it to the fans to do a 30-second recap, so I will do so forthwith. And we are greeted at the beginning with Chekhov's shoes. Mike and Gus meet. 3 words are exchanged. Chuck is a dick. Jimmy wants a deal. Chuck is a dick. Mike Rube Goldberg's an elaborate drug bust. And Jimmy and Kim have plans for Chuck's ass. There you go. There's the recap for the show.
Wow. Okay.
I think I got it all.
Did you?
Yeah. I'm not sure what I missed. All the beats are there. We got the shoes. We got Chuck being a dick.
Yeah.
We got Jimmy and Kim joining forces at the end. So we will now add some depth to that recap. So I'm going to remove my notes for that. So we're still working out the kinks on kind of all the process, but I have a sneaking suspicion. You know, one of the things I like to do is the recap, of course, and then favorite quote from the episode. And so that's something I want to continue to work through. Make sure we're both ready for that. I'm not sure if Jeans is like 100% ready, but I'm also fairly sure I'll share my favorite quote of the episode, which I think you'll co-sign on, which is when Jimmy's meeting with Mr. Penny and a Pryor, his kind of court buddy from all the different types of things.
The DA?
The DA, yep. And who eats horribly. Right?
He's always got a bag of chips.
It's a chip lunch for the guy. And Jimmy comes in sporting a major burger and some nice fries. And you could just see this guy sigh with want. And so Jimmy offers him some fries because Jimmy's trying to cut a deal. Finds out the guy's not in the mix. So at the very tail end, even after Jimmy learns that this guy's no use to him, he's kind of eyeing the hamburger, and he's like, well, you want it? And Jimmy goes, yeah, it's full of trans fats. And the guy responds, those are the best fats. So it's it's full of trans fats. Those are the best fats. That's my quote of the episode.
Yeah,
Figure you could co-sign on that one.
The embroidery on the pillow is trans fats are the best fats. So.
Yep. That'd be a good T-shirt too.
There you go.
It's excellent. So what'd you think of this episode overall?
It was a little slower. It was a little more, I don't know. It wasn't as much fun. I have to say, anytime Chuck gets any significant amount of camera time, I just want to shoot myself. So he's just everything that comes out of his mouth is just painful. All of it, everything. There's really, there hasn't been a conversation that he's had that I've been like, wow, he seems like a nice person. We should really like. It just seems like a control freak and such a jerk all the time. So I have to sign off on Jimmy calling it Chuck's bullshit vendetta. I like that as a description because it's very accurate.
Yeah, I mean, and Michael McKean does such a, so you love this guy. He's been so awesome in so many things, and to have him play this character who you just end up loathing.
It goes all the way back to Lenny, right? From Laverne and Shirley. Like I remember him from that with his greasy hair and all these other like sort of fun movies and Clue, and just and then he plays this and you just can't stand him. Oh.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned last show, he can't stand him either. He recognizes he's a pretty horrible guy. But yeah, it is just because, there's like these hints of maybe there's a little bit of a positive side to Chuck. He's meeting with the person that's going to be the prosecutor against Jimmy. And at the very beginning, it's 100% Chuck, and it won't be a problem for me to testify against my brother, blah, 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 and all that. And then you kind of almost get this sense of remorse, like, well, he's a good guy. And you're starting to go, okay, he actually has some feeling. You're like, no, it's all a game for him because he's after Jimmy's license to practice law. And that's his little emotional lead-in to kind of say, so this is what we're going to do.
Right. And it's all orchestrated, all of it.
So, and so there has been in the fandom some criticism, particularly kind of in this middle, around, I think, probably reached a head during season 3 on pacing. That's a little bit to what you're talking about. It's like, well, I mean, this didn't rocket along because they just kind of build on different things. And I mean, this is a great example of it. Now, I personally, I don't mind it. Because I got the time, So if you want to take the time to roll through it, I'm good with that. Because I still think it's good storytelling. But the whole, I mean, they kind of ran this thread with the shoes. You get a little teaser at the beginning. It's kind of a flash forward because the shoes are falling down off the wire, and you're like, what's that all about? And you eventually kind of piece together. They give you little bits of pieces. Mike gets this he wants a bag this big, and you're like, what's that for? And then you start to see it, and so it all kind of plays out. Jeans and I try and watch this together in advance to kind of get ready for it. And I'm sorry, you were going to say something. I don't want to.
No, I was going to say, I think a lot of what Mike does is a little bit of a mystery through most of the shows because he's, he has very few lines. And so you kind of have to figure it out for yourself. And I did not see him stuffing that bag of drugs into the sneakers before he threw it over the wire. I was like, what is he asking for? And then that was the last thing I thought he would be doing with a bag of drugs, sticking it in a sneaker. But.
Yep. Yeah, and they just kind of give you these little building blocks that eventually lead up to the final conclusion. But so apparently Jeans is a better Mike Ehrmantraut than Mike Ehrmantraut. she got a little judgy. I know it's a little shocking to the groups listening that there would be judgment provided by the young lady, but
Oh, no. I said that he gets an A for effort on throwing the sneakers over the wire, but his technique is he's a little to be desired. He throws them both up together, and really, if you want to swing it over a wire, you have to kind of throw one up, above the other.
hold one shoe, use the other one as a counterweight, and throw up. Where Mike was grabbing it in the middle and doing it.
Shoelaces and trying to swing it over, and I was surprised it was only 3 times before he got it.
But he accomplished it on the third try, and it's true because it's not like they filmed this or anything. It could do multiple takes. Third try, even with the highly superior Gene tactic of holding the one shoe and kind of flipping it up from there, I'm not sure you do better than 3 tries either. I know I would. I would not. I wouldn't even be close. I'd be there. It'd be dark by the time that I got it over the wire. But yeah, it was this whole process of them showing the shoes, and then Mike getting the stuff, and then Mike putting the shoes over, and then they do this thing of they're in with his sniper rifle, and you're looking through the scope with him, and he's got the sniper rifle on the 2 drivers, and you're like, is he going to shoot them? And then he basically fires a couple shots to give them the idea that there's hunters out there somewhere, so that the shot that into the shoe that drops the drugs,
release the drugs.
Way more complicated than it needed to be, in my opinion. I would have thought he could have waited till they gassed up somewhere and just gone boop, and just kind of went out there and done some things. But it was cool. It was clever. All those types of things. This is another episode that's a little bit Kim light. She makes the most of what she's there. It appears that she's sleeping at work and showering at the gym, popping in the ponytail and heading out. And our good friend Ernie shows up again and fills her in on what's going on. And so she rushes in to help Jimmy, and Jimmy bounces her out. He's like, nope, she's not gonna be my counsel. I'm gonna represent myself.
Right.
So what'd you kind of think of that whole scenario?
He gives her a lot of lefts at Albuquerque, all the time. She's never on the same page as him. He does not keep her up to snuff at all, and I really felt it was not a great decision for him to kind of shoot her out. He needs help. He's a bit of a train wreck. I'm sorry. I mean, he's clever, and he certainly knows how to get himself in trouble, but he really should have let her help. I don't know.
Yeah. I think he loses perspective with Chuck. I think there's just so much going on there with Chuck that it just kind of puts him in a bad decision place there. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want this highly talented person to represent you? But then you kind of get through the episode. He's like, this is my screw up. It's on me. You're busy. I mean, he ultimately is doing it because he doesn't want to hurt. He's embarrassed by what he did. He also doesn't.
I think that's key. I think a lot of the things that he was saying about she's too busy, she's got enough to deal with. Well, I think a lot of that was crap. I think he's just full on embarrassed.
Yeah, I think that's the primary motivation. I also do think he's like, I can't ask her to help on this. It's all on me, which he kind of says in the episode. Yeah, we get a lot of, so you've had this whirlwind tour through Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So I'm sure everything's a little blurry for you there, but
it is, yeah.
So the other DA, the guy that he had the lunch fry meeting with, gave his trans fats to and all that. He goes back to very early Better Call. Actually, I think the first episode. Where they're constantly Petty and a Prior, I think Petty, whatever the Petty Larson and a Prior, and they both eat out of vending machines and all those types of things. Right. So he's an interesting character. I've grown to really not like him very much, and he does seem to kind of gloat on poor Jimmy when he's in booking. And then at the tail end, he kind of sort of expresses empathy, although provides, I think, the worst advice effort to Jimmy to say, yeah, find the biggest guy in holding and hit him, establish dominance. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think Jimmy's a dominance kind of guy. I think he's a word kind of guy. But
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
it's fun.
he's an interesting character, but he's also one of those people that you would just sort of put up with at work, and you wouldn't really get along with. You wouldn't be talking to him about anything personal if you could help it.
Yeah, because it would come back at you in a bad way all the time.
Right.
So yeah, he's no good. So do you think there's anything redeeming about Chuck at this point in time?
No, I really don't.
No.
There's so much about Chuck I don't like. So much. I just think he's very pampered, and I don't think he lives on planet Earth at all. I think he's got enough money to insulate himself, both literally and figuratively, and I don't think he's got a real good grasp on life in general, and I think he lets his little tiny world is very twisted, and I think he lets that bleed onto things, and he really, really has it in for Jimmy on a lot of levels. There's so many different things that we get little snippets of, and with the parents and things of that nature, where he's just spiteful, and I think it wasn't so much that he didn't like what Jimmy was doing. Was Jimmy's able to pull off things that Chuck would never be able to pull off, and he's able to win cases that Chuck would never be able to win. And I think he doesn't like that. I think he's still jealous of his little kid brother with all the charm. And he doesn't, that bothers him. It doesn't want him in his profession doing better, and it's a threat more than anything.
Yeah, because it was the one thing, since Jimmy basically outflanked him at relationships, humor, endearing himself to people. The one thing that Chuck had on Jimmy was, I'm a lawyer, and I'm awesome, and I'm super knowledgeable, and then Jimmy shows up in the same framework. And while, probably not as book smart or knowledgeable as Chuck, very effective. I mean, and that was the thing even in Breaking Bad, is that while it's a lot of hand waving and crazy talk and all those types of things, the guy gets results. He gets things done. He's clever, he's smart, and he gets things done.
He does, but it's not, and then when you kind of step back and you really look at Chuck, it's not just Jimmy that he's a jerk to, because I mean, he poor Ernie gets fired,
Yep.
and he did try and take Mesa Verde away from Kim, and that's what kind of got him into this situation. And I get very annoyed with people who engage in shitty behavior and then get upset when shitty behavior is returned upon them. And that's exactly what Chuck did. Chuck stole Mesa Verde when he knew that she needed this, and he knew that was her client. She brought it in, and then when something was volleyed back at him, he just goes completely berserk. I mean, so overboard, and just like that makes me. I can't stand that kind of lack of ownership. If you're going to play in the mud, you're going to get dirty, and
Yep.
you need to accept that and not, he was so indignant. Oh, it's insane.
Indignant and gosh, I don't know what self-righteous is a good word, but this is an arrogant. I think arrogance another key term,
It's very
because
pompous.
the whole process. So we kind of pick up right where the last episode left off, with Mike and the cell phone to Gus, and that meeting happens with two of the most short verbiage people interacting with each other. It's super interesting. But then the aftermath of Jimmy breaking in on Chuck's plan, and he had the guys to see him and all those things. And so Jimmy's resigned to his fate. He goes out and grabs some cigarettes out of the Esteem and grabs a seat on the curb and smoking a cigarette, waiting for the cops to show up. And Chuck walks out and goes, you can wait inside. It's just like,
Ugh. Go away.
yeah. Why Chuck didn't receive a large middle finger at that point in time, I don't understand. But then he go ahead.
No, and then he proceeds to tell him, like, this is really for the best. I'm doing this for your own good. And Chuck, you're not his parent, and you're just, and it's not. It's got nothing to do with him. This is all about you.
Yeah, you're going to be a better
really,
man coming out of this, and I'll be there for you. And it's just blah blah blah. It's all crap. And then it's probably my favorite moment of the episode is when Chuck talks about, this is how it's all going to work out. You're going to come out, you're going to be a better man, and I'm going to be there for you, and it's a good thing, and these kinds of things. And Jimmy turns around and says, no, this is how it's going to be. And it's like, you're going to be wrapped up in your space blanket, you're going to go to the hospital, you're going to be in pain, and you're going to die alone. And you kind of saw Chuck go, yeah, it's probably right. Yeah. I think you got it.
Because when he's talking to Hay, who is the DA that they brought in, because there's no conflict with prosecuting Jimmy, since they've all worked with him, all the locals have worked with him, they brought somebody in, and one of the things that Chuck says to Hay is like, he brings me groceries and sundries. Like, that's all he did. Like, he wasn't holding his hand through this whole process. Like, he wasn't doing all the things that Chuck needed to be done, and mailing things and bringing him his newspapers. Yep. And going out of his way, and going to the hospital and making sure that they did not check him into an asylum, which is what they wanted to do, because let's face it, this whole thing, and one of the things that the doctor does is, she kind of just flips on the bed, all the electronics on the bed, while they're talking, and he doesn't realize it, so he doesn't react to it. So it's really not a real thing. It's all in Chuck's head. And the fact that and I think on some level Chuck knows that, and the fact that his brother has sat there and shielded him, this person that he can't stand, has done nothing but follow him around like a puppy dog and shield him from all these horrible things and help him out, and he just nails it down to groceries and sundries. That's it. Like, it's like, I don't think you thought this through, Chuck, because the next time you're in the hospital, your brother's not going to be there to make sure that you don't get checked in permanently.
Yeah. Which is one of the, and we've talked about this a little bit before. It's the heartbreaking thing of this path is that Jimmy ultimately is a flawed but good person. Right. And he's on his way to being a flawed, not good person as he enters full Saul Goodman mode. And it's like, so how does this happen? But you just see so much of, the goodness that was there, and it's, and that just makes it a little bit tough to know, well, that's going, we're going to be seeing a little bit less of that, and Chuck played a huge role.
Chuck chipped away at that little by little. Yeah. Really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're in kind of catch-up mode, particularly now that Jeans is like completely sold out. She's all good. We'll be getting all the way through slowly but surely. We'll get through season 3 and 4 and 5, and so we should be in actually really good shape. That by the time season 6 shows up, we'll be able to kind of drop these shortly after they air, which will be very cool. And so we're trying to not go ahead too much, but I will at least break that rule a little bit to say eventually one of the things I'm looking forward to is there's eventually a time where Kim and Chuck have a conversation around how Chuck treats Jimmy,
Yes.
and one of my favorite moments in the show, so that'll come up, and I think that'll come up in this season actually, so we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. But I think the show overall, I did sort of just feel like Jimmy sitting on the curb there a little bit. It's just, I'm waiting for the next thing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, not huge movements forward, but groundwork being laid. We're ready to go. Kim and Jimmy joining forces to go after Chuck here at the end. They could have got to it quicker, Mike getting the guys busted, but it's always enjoyable, and the visuals, as usual, are amazing. It's like really cool scenes and very, very clever. Only kind of Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould and the cinematographers involved can kind of take, hey, there's a truck driving down the road in the beginning of this episode, and make it a really intriguing thing to watch. You got shot underneath the transmission. You got these types of things. So they always do this nice visual piece to it, which is cool. But yeah, this wasn't action-packed, I would say. But as always, I enjoyed it, and I think action is yet to come. So we'll do that.
Very true.
So we'll try again. So any other thoughts before we wrap this up for this week?
No, I think we got everything.
She's laughing because we had to do it a second time because of internet. So thanks for listening, everybody,
Internet, yeah.
and watching, I guess. So bye.